What is truth? Hello.
Hiya, how are you?
Okay, it's been we've been pretty good for like over 3 months of doing this weekly, but events got in the way.
Yeah, you were
last
off down
weekend.
to England, so
I was, so more on that maybe later on in this, but we're here, but a bit earlier than we normally be recording during the week.
because I'm off this weekend.
Because you're going away this weekend indeed. And in the UK, for our BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, our flagship public broadcaster, of which a big part of it is, I say a big part of it, it isn't a big part of it now. It's all the entertainment website.
The news,
and all
you mean,
that.
right? Yeah.
But the BBC News is a component of it, and it is in crisis, clearly. This all stems from a Panorama. So Panorama, you've mentioned it before, it's one of the main kind of investigative journalism programs. It's been running for ever.
Yeah, I mean, it was running when I moved over here.
Oh, way before that. I mean,
so
there'll be back in the 60s. There'll be Panorama shows. So it is the investigative journalist program on the BBC, and they had a documentary about Trump that was broadcast back in November. I think it was when was the election? Was it the 5th or something?
Early. It's always early November.
Yeah. Anyway, it was just a few days before the election. I think it was the 2nd of November. This was first broadcast, and within it was all about Donald Trump, the documentary, and in it there's a whole section related to the January 6th, 2021, and
insurrection.
the insurrection, the attempted
coup
in the United States.
Trump was trying to stop the peaceful transfer of power.
So what that documentary included were clips from the speech that he was giving, and in that he went rabbiting on, and of course there was all these other people that were speaking at it, and speaking in some vile language as some of the other speeches, and then Trump gets up and gives a speech at which he is encouraging people to go down to the Capitol building.
Yep, the stop the steal kind of thing.
Yeah, he uses that word, saying this is a word that you've given to the crowd. But the thing is about Trump, he is a master at this manipulative language of saying everything.
Yes, absolutely. So you can pick a clip.
Yeah, so you can pick a bit that will say you need to be peaceful, and then you can pick another bit that says you need to fight, because your country depends on it. So,
but he puts those peaceful things in as a kind of get out of jail free card.
Exactly. It allows you then to get away with anything, because folks will, he didn't mean it because he also said this.
Plausible deniability, but you've got to be awfully gullible, don't you? Because he does it all the time. But
it works.
It does seem to work.
It works.
Yeah.
And here's a case in point. So it probably was the editors of this documentary. They took some snippets from the speech, and all they needed to do
was play the speech.
Well, of course that would be way too long, but they just needed to make it clear that these were two bits from different parts of the speech that they were kind of putting together to make a point. But they didn't. They just kind of edited it together as if it was one sentence. And the sentence was him encouraging people to go down to the Capitol and then to fight. Now, those were two different sentences that were 15 minutes apart. But the point they were making was correct, was true, but they shouldn't have done it that way. It should have been done in a more clear, transparent manner. Exactly. So I mean, that was back in November. This has all hit the press because there was a memo that a guy has, well, actually, before we go on to that, it's worth saying that there was on 60 Minutes, so the big CBS, the Americans version of Panorama.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. However, that has already folded to Donald Trump, and in fact given $16 million to Donald Trump in a settlement because he had accused
deceptively edited Kamala Harris's interview with him, and which of course they'd only edited it the way interviews are always edited. You never
to tighten the language up,
and you never just show a whole.
Yeah, it wasn't it didn't change anything she said. It just it was about the way the language was. Now, this last weekend, Donald Trump was interviewed by 60 Minutes. And
it was a car crash.
It was a car crash, but they edited what he said. Yeah. And they edited out a part where he threatens to walk out of the interview. So they took that out of what was broadcast. They then put an extended version, which you'd think would then be the whole interview, up on YouTube. It was edited out of that version as well. So it's only in the written transcript you see. In fact, there's a whole bunch of edits that they've made, but these were all in his favour.
Positive, yes. He doesn't mind those.
No problem with any of that. So there's a deep kind of irony about the sort of double standards that are at play here, but also the care, I guess, that needs to be extended in this current climate with the news shows. So Trump is he's threatening to sue the BBC for
just ridiculous.
$1 billion.
I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, honestly, you can't actually make his reputation any worse than it already is. Can you? Like, I don't. Feels like.
Well, though, of course, I mean, what he's trying to do,
and they didn't lie about him.
They didn't. No, there was nothing that was a lie, but it was. Well, I mean, what they should have done is immediately it became clear what had happened. They should have apologized,
and haven't they done that?
Well, they have,
but it took
them a whole week to get to that point. So, So
in which case, everything percolated through the right-wing press.
Yeah. Well, so it all came out because there was a memo that was produced by a guy who is on the right, and I think he's often pushing on issues where he thinks the BBC news is too liberal, too progressive,
which is very, very ironic, because the
if
BBC
you are progressive, you kind of don't see it that way.
And the BBC has been pushing Nigel Farage out of all proportion to his support in Parliament. And it's like they are trying to make him inevitable. So as someone who is progressive, I'm definitely feel like there is a fair amount of right-wing slant at the BBC that I find very distressing. In fact, the BBC put out they sent kind of questionnaires to a variety of people asking their opinions on the BBC a while ago. I happened to get one of those, and I absolutely laid end to them for the right-wing bias. Of course, when they published the results, they kind of made it sound like the quarter of respondents that said that they were biased were saying they needed to be separate from the government of the day. But making it sound as if we said their bias was left-wing, which I'm sure that wasn't the case,
I would expect they would get a big chunk of people on both sides saying they're biased, because in general they would still be pretty middle of the road. It feels like there's been a shift in things, but for other folks, the
platforming of Nigel Farage is crazy at the moment.
That is one thing. It does seem like how they responded to the wokeism may have gone too far for where the population was, and that caused a backlash against what they were doing there. So this guy, Michael Prescott is his name. He's the guy that wrote this, and so I think it was a week or so ago. Deborah Turness, who was the head of news for the BBC, was called into the board to answer to what was in this memo. Okay. The memo that was, because the program went out in months ago.
Yeah, it was a year ago.
A year ago. Yeah. There's layers to all of this that's been going on. Apparently she wanted to do what was the right thing, just to be transparent, say, yes, we made a mistake in the edit, but we stand behind the journalism that was there. And she was refused to do that. So the board did not allow her to do it for this whole week. The Telegraph got hold of the copy of the memo. So they put a story out about it like a week ago. And or more than a week ago now, 9 days ago. And then I think Farage got hold of the story, so then he got in a conversation with Trump about it to sow the seeds with Trump, so that Trump then was aware of what was going on there. And so this then has spilled out over it seems like in the board, now the board does not have many journalists on it, those who have editing experience. Mm-hmm. So it is not a board that has on it the kind of people that you really should have on the board of a international news organization. Indeed, yeah. And so they have obviously kind of lost the plot. In amongst that group was Robbie Gibb. He's one of the board members, been on it 4 years or so. He used to be the comms director for Theresa May, former Conservative Prime Minister. Mm-hmm. And he helped to fund what is our equivalent of Fox News, GB News. So he is coming from a position both of wanting, although he's on the board, he's set up a rival news organization.
And he wants the BBC to be discredited.
Yes, of course.
So you do wonder sometimes about the motivation of the board in their response.
So it seems like there was some big division in the board, which led to them.
Deborah Turness, who wanted to come and just kind of address it right away.
So it ends up with Deborah Turness has resigned as the head of news, and then Tim Davie, who was the Director General of the BBC,
who also has a conservative background, although much further ago, I think he stood as a conservative.
To be a Conservative MP.
Yeah, back in the 90s. When the Conservative Party was quite different than it is today, it has to be said. You know how the Republican Party is very different today than it was in the 90s? The same thing has happened to our Conservative Party here. Sure. But he certainly is that's his background.
Yeah. I can't remember if he was he appointed when Boris Johnson was
No, I think,
PM, or was it just before that?
There is this promoted by Boris Johnson. I mean, he's been at the BBC for a long time, I think.
Yeah.
Since the early 2000s.
Because there is this strange thing of these sort of political appointments on that. And of course, the BBC is funded by
the British taxpayer.
We pay a fee for the BBC in order to have
impartiality,
an impartial news service and other things, all the
not to have ads and things in our
indeed, which is nice. It was very nice not to have adverts. So Samir Shah is the chairman of the BBC board, and he is the guy. I don't know if you remember a few years ago. There was a report all on racism in Britain, and he was the lead author or one of the authors of that report, and And his take on it was that there was no institutional racism in Britain. So clearly somebody who's really got his finger on the pulse of reality.
Yeah, that seems crazy.
Of objective truth in what's going on.
Especially when you see what's happening at the moment with the kind of outside the hotels for asylum seekers and everything.
Racism is...
Yeah.
I
mean, I guess that's not institutional racism, but certainly when you hear anyone talking about like the Met and things, there are lots of problems there.
The Metropolitan Police Force in London is deep problems with racism. And certainly in the country, if you're having just been down in Englandshire and seen the flags on lampposts, it is an issue, what is going on. Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like there's a complete breakdown in leadership at the BBC. I mean, why they didn't just respond immediately? So, as you say, it's allowed the space for it all to fester. And then, I mean, I don't know, my YouTube algorithm is just full of stories from the Mail, the Sun, blah, blah, blah. All these right-wing, all about the BBC.
Pushing it,
pushing that. And it's all with a narrative of trying to get rid of, undermine the BBC's foundations.
I just want it to be reformed. I want it just reformed in the sense of impartial and not being. There's so many members of the current leadership of the BBC have been appointed by the very recent Conservative government and have very clear, quite far right-wing ties, which you do see showing up in some of the coverage choices they're making, and I would like that to stop. But I think the BBC as an institution is incredibly important.
That may be kind of at the top, but then I don't know. I've heard some folks talking about the BBC as far as because it's a big organisation, so there's a lot of turnover and a lot of younger folks that may have been pushing some of the other aspects of what was in the zeitgeist, especially you think over the last decade and what's been, what's happened in the news, in the Me Too movement, in the aftermath of George Floyd and all that kind of thing. That there was maybe there was a push there within the internal structures of the BBC to be a more aware organisation, but that then filtered into the news and what was going on there. So there's a difference between your own kind of principles that you use for your own management within the organisation, and then what you're actually producing and out for for others. If that kind of makes sense.
Yes, I haven't looked at it too much. I just know I just am annoyed at how much we see Nigel Farage on it. That's kind of the extent of my...
As you say, frequently.
Yes. Or other reform.
Yeah, well, they are a political company. Party. So there we go. Lord Reith was the first Director General of the BBC. So in UK parlance, we have this Reithian principles. Is quite often you hear folks talking about it, and so the three principles that were part of the sort of founding of the BBC was that it was there to inform, to educate, and to entertain. So the news side of it, the kind of documentary side of it, and the education side of it. I remember as a kid, on late night on BBC Two was all open university programs. So there was that.
I think it was still like that when I moved over here, or early morning. It was open university programs. Yeah.
So that was a big part of, and then education. Entertainment, of course, was all the other kind of stuff. But that whole to inform is clearly under attack. And so, as I mentioned, Farage has absolutely jumped on the bandwagon. Boris Johnson jumped on the bandwagon. He was calling for Tim Davie to resign. And then, of course, Liz Truss had to jump in on the act as well, because wherever there's action, she's got to pop her little head up, pretend she's relevant.
I think she would be embarrassed to do that, given
just a nightmare.
Her
absolute nightmare.
Her tenure as PM.
And then there are those who have authored parts of the Project 2025 who are at work in Europe at the moment, building links with all these sorts of folks in order to undermine
We do need to wake up over here, because these people who are in the process of destroying America don't intend to stop with America. And they've never intended to stop with America. They've always been funneling money, these kind of right-wing groups.
It's protecting them. It's protecting what they have, and institutions and organizations that will tell the truth about what's going on.
Yes. And it's like Anne Applebaum's Autocracy, Inc., isn't it? Once you have an autocratic state, they need all the other states to be autocratic too, because then you have these corrupt leaders who are controlling all of the information. And of course, information is global now. You can't just, it's very hard to just control within your own company. So they really don't like, democracies are dangerous to them. Free flow of accurate information is dangerous to them, which is why we have all of these bot farms that feed out absolutely opposite bits of information, because they don't actually care what you believe. They actually want you to think, it's too hard to figure out what the truth is. So having an organization like the BBC, which, even though it does have its problems, is fundamentally a serious investigative journalistic operation, they don't want that.
It can be, yeah. It
has been at its best.
At its best.
And there are lots of calls for it to come back to those roots.
Think about some of the document. What's the guy's name? Adam, the guy who did hyper-normalization.
Yes. I'm not remembering.
That's annoying. I will put it up on screen. Those documentaries are profound.
And they're fascinating.
Yeah.
You should go watch that, by the way.
Hyper-normalization. But
do it over a couple of, it's a lot to watch in one sitting. Yeah, do it over 2 or 3 sittings, but
it is trying to look, trying to find that narrative of what's going on, the big picture around the world globally, what things that are happening.
What's actually happening versus the narrative.
And that is fascinating journalism going on there. Oh, that's going to really bug me. Need to find that out. So all of that is going on with the BBC, and we come back to that. Well, I was listening to Vlad Vexler, the kind of philosopher, talking about this, what was happening with the BBC, and he was just making the point that the BBC is utterly lost in how to respond to a post-truth world. So now a post-truth world.
I think a lot of us feel like that sometimes, because it's hard to break through all the noise, isn't it? Yeah. So a post-truth world, if you're not, you'll have heard that expression. Everyone will have heard that expression. But it's meaning that there aren't the tethers to objective reality that there would have been in the past, when everyone watched the news together, and when you all met up at work the following day, you all have seen the 9 o'clock news and kind of have that kind of understanding of what's going on in the world, and so you could talk. Yes, you could talk together with a kind of on a common ground of understanding, and that is just being utterly undermined in favor of feelings and emotions. That it's all about what you personally believe to be true, rather than what is objectively the algorithm
true.
Feeds you, isn't it? Things that that feed your emotional responses.
Yeah.
And quite often your negative emotional responses, because that's what gets the most clicks, things that make people angry. Yeah. Whether or not they're angry at something that's based in reality,
So, it's worth saying that the BBC News is still, I was just having a wee look on the YouGov on a poll back just in June this month. It is still top for trusted organisations for news in the UK, which is kind of startling at the moment. To go back to the question I started with, what is truth? That was famously the question of Pontius Pilate. So when Jesus is being brought to him and he asks him, are you the king? Are you king of the Jews? And Jesus says, that's what you say I am. And then he goes on, this is in John's gospel, so it's kind of different in the different gospel accounts. But in John's gospel, for this I was born, this is Jesus speaking, and for this I came into the world to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice. And then Pilate says, cynically, I wonder what his tone of voice might have been. What is truth?
Yes. Was it a sincere question?
Yeah.
Ironic
So,
one?
What is truth to you? So here we've got this whole story, which is all about truth, and at its heart, that's what it is. It was about a journalist trying to explain a truth to people, but they were. I suspect in the editing they've tried to shortcut the process, and they knew what the truth was, and they were just looking for a way to communicate that truth quickly to people, and they made a mistake in how they did that.
Because Panorama is quite, to be fair, it's quite a short program. Like 60 minutes is its equivalent in the States, but Panorama is usually
about 40 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, it isn't the 60 minutes, although maybe it's the same with adverts. It probably is with
adverts, indeed. Exactly.
I think the last Panorama, though, that I watched was shorter than that. I remember feeling like, this is really short. But
attention spans. It used to be 4 hours. But, so what is truth to you?
Well, I think truth is complicated. Right? I think
bar of soap.
Yes, and I think that actually thinking I've got the handle on truth does anyone really? Because I mean, we all have different perceptions. We have, as a teacher with students, I can perceive an interaction with a student completely differently from the way the student perceives it, or two students interact with each other, and when you speak with them, they give similar but like significantly different versions of that interaction, and sometimes people genuinely have different perceptions and different ideas about and your memory can get things very confused, and there's a lot of confirmation bias. And so I think truth is a really tricky concept, and I don't think it's as simple as I know the truth and you don't know the truth, and
So do you think, you would think in mathematics or something like that. Are there objective truths? Like 1 + 1 equals 2?
Yes. And obviously in the physical world.
But only in certain numbering systems.
Yes, that's true. Only
so
in the base 10
it depends on the structure
system.
you're in.
Yeah, that's true. In the structure that you're using.
If you're in binary, 1 + 1 does not equal 2.
No. Right. So obviously the framework that you're working within obviously makes a difference. But I do just think that when you're talking about people, truth gets murky, and because our perceptions are so colored by our past and our relationships and our feelings, and so I think I guess I think it's really important that we, to get to truth, we have to be aware of how nebulous it can be and how tricky it can be to get to.
So so that's the sort of difference between objective sort of reality and subjective reality, or
yes, but then we only live in our subjective experience, don't we? right? Like,
but then you see that's feeding into the post-truth and sort of understanding of the world is just about our personal.
Well, no. I guess what I don't think it's just about the personal world that we live in. I think it's being aware that the personal world that we live in colors our perception so strongly that we need to be very careful about making claims of absolute truth and making, and I guess it's just, we need to be humble about that. And speaking as a teacher, like when we're looking at attainment of class, you triangulate the data. So you look at a variety of different pieces of data to come up with where are our kids, what are they doing well at, where do we need to take them? And you don't just look at one piece of evidence for that. Sure. And so I would think when there's an issue that I'm interested in, then I think I would go to obviously journalistic sources that I trust, but I would want to hear from a few different, and I would want it to be not sound bites. Like I just think the soundbite television that we get hooked into and that some people then believe that is truth. I mean, they are selling you something and they are trying to hold your attention and they are making things sensational and they want to engage your emotions. They don't necessarily, in fact, when you have people on either side, you have people who are muddying the waters on truth. So, I guess I just think it's a complicated topic.
We were talking about Karl Popper and what he was talking about as far as an open society goes in our last one or
yes,
one before that. Was it our last one? Wasn't it? Yeah. So, of course, he wrote a huge amount about the sort of scientific method and the kind of philosophy of science. Mm-hmm. And he has he calls it verisimilitude, doesn't it? His kind of concept of you'll never find the ultimate truth, but you're always working to get closer to it. So his verisimilitude is the kind of what is correct in your theory, less what is the kind of false parts of it. So you're wanting to try and minimize the false parts of your theories and there in order to try to work your way closer to the truth.
And you think of science as being objectively true, and you think of it as being using the scientific method, it's self-correcting, and when you
evidential,
right, you go with evidence, and when evidence proves your theory wrong, you let it go. And but obviously, and I'm blanking on the name of who it was, but the whole idea of a paradigm shift in science. We'll need to look up who that came from.
We were just talking about that.
We were just talking about it the other day. But the thing is, these paradigm shifts in science are very, very hard because no matter how objective we think science is, when you have people who are entrenched in their field and they have committed their whole life to a certain way of scientific thinking, which has had lots of scientific evidence. It's like going from Newtonian physics to Einstein. There was a huge paradigm shift, but that is resisted, right? So this whole idea of truth and that we see truth and we recognize it and we run for it because we want the truth. Well, no, that's not as simple as that, even in the hard sciences. Yeah. So even in the hard sciences, we have personal investments in a certain way of thinking or a certain way of being or a certain belief system, right? Mm-hmm. And then when that is challenged by evidence, it's hard to make that paradigm shift. Yeah. And so I think even more so in the social sciences and in human relationships, because again, back to Jonathan Haidt, we are driven by our emotions.
We do read other books.
We do, but I think that's why we started with that. This understanding of how we evaluate information and how we make decisions and how we come to what we believe is true is much more based on our emotions, and we use our rational mind to rationalize what our emotions want to believe. So I think this idea of truth is slippery monster.
Yeah. And there's the other aspect of there are different truths in that, you could have take a painting, the Mona Lisa or something. You can analyze that painting down to the molecular level.
Yeah.
Brush strokes, the sort of technique, down to what paints were used, what the molecules were in the paints, what are the atoms that are part of those molecules, what are the, subatomic particles that are part of it. You can do that for a person,
Or you could ask what people's reaction is to that painting or that person.
That's exactly the point I was going to make. Yeah. So then, and that is an equal truth, is how you respond to a piece of artwork, or how you respond to a person. So you could have an ingredients list that makes up a person. Whatever all it is, how much water, how much carbon, how much blah blah blah. But that's not
who the person.
That's not who the person is, and that's the kind of almost the incarnational side of things. That revelation side of matter, that it transcends the matter and becomes something else, and there's a truth there. And that I wonder if that's what. So we just talked about that just the little vignette from the Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, and what Jesus, and in John's Gospel as well. One of our great I am sayings was I am the way, the truth, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. What did Jesus mean by describing himself as truth? To my mind, it's about that. It's about that revelation of an understanding of the world, seeing a truth in the way that the world works, that he was trying to reveal there.
The way that the world works, or the way that the world should work, like in terms of.
Well, he was kind of pointing to himself. I came to reveal the truth. And in his relationship with God, his understanding of the kingdom of God, about the kind of how, so that's where the kingdom of God comes to how the world works. But that was all founded in relationship. So that's that. So
that's the truth. Yeah.
That's
why my people are a little skeptical of you, right? Yeah. because in the conservative evangelical worldview, Jesus is the truth. And that truth is their interpretation of and there is the truth, basically, that Jesus is the way to get to heaven. That's what it all boils down to. It's not really about the kingdom of God. It's about Jesus is the way to get to heaven, because he is what he says about God is true. Forget the fact that they ignore almost everything that he says about God, and about how God cares for the least of these. I mean, with what's going on in the States, and the Republican Party that conservative evangelicals overwhelmingly support. It's so. But their view, it's all about getting to heaven.
It's the mechanics.
It's the mechanics. Yeah, it's not the relationships. Yeah. Although they would say it's the relationship. They would say that they have a personal relationship. So kind of ironic.
Only I don't listen to anything he says. Yeah. I don't follow what he does.
But what they mean by a personal relationship is that they pray and they read the Bible and they go to church.
Yeah.
Right? They pray and they read the Bible and they go to church. And they try to get other people to pray and read the Bible and go to church. That is their idea of a relationship with God. They think everyone needs to have a relationship with God by praying and reading the Bible and going to church. And they just ignore all of the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes and the parable of the wheat and tares and all of that kind of stuff. It doesn't get a look in.
Yeah.
So what's the truth? Then? What's the truth about the biblical message, right? Indeed. And of course, truth is always contested. I mean, truth is always contested. That's just a basic of philosophy and psychology. And
it's no surprise that Pontius Pilate 2,000 years ago
was asking
what is truth? And that would have reflected his own Greco-Roman understanding of the world is how do you know what truth is anyway?
And I think that's what I'm getting at I think what I'm getting at is I think we need to be very skeptical of anyone or any group of people that claims, I know the truth, I'm right about the truth, I'm not wrong about it, you need to listen to me. Yeah. And there are lots of those kind of voices, I think, and it's very undermining to democracy, because democracy only works in dialogue with people who have different understandings than you and different viewpoints than you. So I think this understanding of truth as a negotiation, in some senses, right? And and that there's probably truth in everyone's viewpoints, and we need to dialogue about that, and we need to find a way to respect other people's beliefs and to then work together to create a society that.
So that's, I mean, just to bring ourselves because we're not going to answer this question on what is truth, to bring us full circle back to where we were, to the BBC, and one of their kind of foundation for news is impartiality. I mean, it's right there. There's a whole bit about it on their website about the need to be impartial, and that is an honourable and good principle to have if you're wanting to be a kind of honest arbiter of what's happening in the world, to be able to reflect to people what is happening in the world as best as they can. But it falls down all the time. And the biggest recent examples we've seen of that was over Brexit, and during the Brexit kind of campaign and what was going on, and indeed in the years that followed. It was Emily Maitlis who was on Newsnight, which is another of the kind of, whereas Panorama is weekly, Newsnight is a daily news show. And she talks herself about the kind of false view that was given to people by the need for impartiality. Yes. So when
you both sides things.
Yeah. So when they would try to find an economist to speak about some aspect of trade in Brexit, they would immediately find somebody who would come up with all the problems that there were going to be. And then it would take them hours and hours and hours to find an economist who would give the pro-Brexit position.
But then they would present them as equal.
Exactly.
Equal weight.
So somebody watching it would think there was and that's the impartiality, an equal balance of what was being said.
It's the same with climate change.
Same with climate change. Just in the stupid little things, but I remember being asked to go on, it must have been something that was going on in the church, in the national church, and I can't remember what the subject matter was, but in the discussion with the producer on the news show, they were saying, we'll line you all up, we'll have you all ready to come on, but it is dependent on having somebody who will give the opposing viewpoint. So if they are not there, chances are we won't have you on.
Crazy, isn't it?
So it is. It really is. So that's where the impartiality is. The intention is good, but it can distort truth and reality by making you think
that these fringe ideas have way more support than they actually have among people who know what they're talking about. I know.
Yeah, and that's where, and it just feels like that's the BBC have absolutely dug themselves a hole here in trying to do their best, and it would be more honest, and that's what some of these journalists like Emily Maitlis and John Sopel and folks that used to work for the BBC and now don't have come out and said afterwards, it's better to be honest about these things and say, we had no problems finding someone who was able to give this view. We can't find a soul to give this other view, because that is actually the reality of the situation.
You wish that would happen.
That's not what happens. So, What is truth?
Yeah.
There you go.
Hard to find. Especially in these days. Especially in these days.
But again, you made the appeal in our last episode of this, that when you find trustworthy sources
support them.
of news or opinion, but it's an opinion of folks that you trust their point of view,
or that have expertise in things. So I think that's one of the things that I would say. When you're looking for truth, I would be looking for people who have expertise in the subject, right? Don't just take a talking head on a news show. Look, what is the person's background? Where do they have expertise in the subject? Do they know more about the subject than I do, right? Like, that's who I want to be hearing from.
So as a case in point in that, look at the people that Donald Trump has put into important positions in the government,
no background in those positions,
no experience,
it's scary.
No knowledge, no expertise, but they give off the right vibes to him.
Well, and that's how authoritarians work. They elevate people who would have absolutely no chance at these jobs in a normal administration. To get the loyalty, right? Because these people, if it was a normal Republican administration, would not have a prayer of the power that they have. So their absolute loyalty is not to the American Constitution or the American democracy, but to Donald Trump. And that's the way he wants it.
Yeah, that is his truth, and the only one that matters to him.
And unfortunately it's a truth that we're all living with, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's enough.
Enough on truth?
I think so.
Be interesting what other folks think about truth. Yeah, it's a fascinating topic. When it's one of those things you just take for granted until you start digging away at it, and then you realise, ooh, this is a lot more complex than I thought.
All right, I'm going to plug another content creator.
Oh, yeah, why not? Spread the love.
Yeah, this time a more political one.
Okay.
So a lady and her...
No stallions involved in this one?
No stallions involved in this one. Her tagline is Mrs. Frazzled, and she's obviously a teacher or an ex-teacher.
Oh, well, that sounds about right.
Yeah, so frazzled does sound about right. And she creates, it's political content, and she's very perceptive. And so some of her straight man content is very informative, and she's very up to date on all the issues and knowledgeable and that. But she creates the funniest videos where she is a kindergarten teacher, and she's speaking to Donald Trump after like a big blowout, as if he's a kindergartner, says, "Oh no, catch a bubble, friend. No, you cannot speak like that to your friends. Oh, no, catch a bubble. We don't, and it's just, and you should go watch her. I can't really do it as well as she does, but she's very funny. And sometimes when you're in the middle of all of the current political chaos in the States, a little bit of humor doesn't go amiss.
Now, so is she like doing a kind of commentary on what's happened during the week and then giving
usually, I think the videos that she makes are relevant to current news events. They're quite amusing. I quite enjoy seeing them come up. So sometimes, you listen to The Bulwark or, whatever. But sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of levity in the... Yeah,
that's what I like. Michael Spicer, isn't it? That over here, he's the guy who does in the room,
like he's
the room behind,
feeding into their microphones, and he's disgusted at what they're saying.
Exactly.
Yes,
why are you not following the advice I'm trying to give you? And
it's quite amusing.
Indeed, somebody else's take on what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, Mrs. Frazzled, she's a good listen if you're into political content and you need a bit of a laugh.
We do.
Yes, I think so. If you're into political content, I suspect you do need a bit of a laugh sometimes.
Right. So, yes, the reason we are kind of delayed is that I was away at a conference last Saturday down in Derby that was titled, For Goodness Sake, So it had slight overtones to our own title. Yeah. You know, what kind of world? What kind of world? Yeah. For goodness sake. Yeah. For goodness sake. You know, it's a very similar kind of idea there. And so this was a conference organized by a body called the Joint Public Issues Team, so JPIT, works on kind of policy issues, politics kind of policy issues with representation from a number of different denominations of church, and will write papers, do some kind of lobbying work to MPs and parliaments and things like that to try and give different opinions, and then also does support work for local churches to engage with their own politicians, and so helps provide resources to encourage them to do that kind of thing. So this was their annual conference, and it was thinking about a lot of the issues that are current. And in fact, I said this. I sent you a wee note in the middle of it, and say so. It was just so it was somebody I know quite well, Sally Foster Fulton, who's a former moderator in the Church of Scotland, and she's still working for Christian Aid in Scotland, and her kind of keynote address sounded like one of the scripts. Sounded like one of the scripts of our podcast, as she was going over a number of different issues. That was a workshop I went to, was on the far right and Christian nationalism. And that was interesting. At that, there were folks talking about their own situation, and there was somebody there who had been working on the outskirts of Birmingham, which is where now I think she called them flaggers. So those where it all started, this kind of movement to put up the St. George's Cross flag, so the English flag.
Yes, not the Union Jack.
Not the Union Jack, but which is fine. It's the flag of England, but
and there are plenty of saltires flying up here.
Yes, indeed, and dragons in Wales and all the rest, but it is being used as a symbol. Yes,
if you're not white,
exclusion,
British, you're not welcome.
Not a symbol of inclusion. And I saw flags as I was driving down there, and so she was talking a bit about the work that they were doing in her community, even in just a small way, of trying to get people from different sides to come together and try to seek out the common ground, and looking at the issues. What are the driving issues that are causing people, especially some younger folks, to jump on to the kind of far right bandwagon, even though you might be talking to them and they would seem like they're really nice kids and all of that, and yet suddenly something would come out of their mouths that you're thinking, whoa, where is that coming from? What are the issues where we all should be concerned about these? And of course, they're all stemming around poverty and opportunity and that kind of thing, and especially in communities where there's been such a lack of funding that all of the kind of traditional outlets and especially for boys, young boys, so kind of youth clubs and all these sorts of things aren't there any longer. And there are plenty of opportunities, but you need to have money to do them in a way that you didn't in the past. And so, she was talking a bit about the work that they've been doing in trying to find that common ground, which was positive and good to hear. But one of the things, I haven't got it for you here, but I'll put it up on screen for folks. They showed a few images that were related to, one of the questions we were asked was, in one word, describe the state of the United Kingdom.
Yes, and you shared this at church on Sunday.
Yeah, I showed it on church on Sunday. So this word cloud, and oh my goodness, it was overwhelmingly negative. It was pretty depressing, the words about kind of fractured and broken and these sorts of things that were coming out. And there was, when we were actually having a kind of discussion about it, there were words of hope that were coming out through it, but it was like, that little seedling trying to fight its way through concrete. It felt like it was a real battle there. But it was really good to be amongst people that are
concerned and
wanting to do something, that they're involved in their communities. So the folks I happened to have lunch with, there was somebody from Wales that was there who had worked for Greenpeace,
right?
And had been he's now in Baptist Church, but he had been in the Church of England, and so lots of different things, and other folks that were active in their own communities with what they were doing. So it was really good to hear what other folks are doing, and
interesting.
Uplifting and encouraging that way, and that there are folks that are trying to produce resources to help communities think about these issues and the ways to go about improving things. But ultimately, it all came down to exactly the same stuff we've been talking about, which is about communication, about listening to each other, about being kind and trying to find ways of
finding common ground with people you disagree with. Or reaching out to and not just writing people off because.
Would it surprise you if I told you that I did download 3 new books that were recommended during the course of the day?
Surprise me in the slightest. Are all of our Audible credits gone?
No, they weren't Audible.
Okay.
No, I leave those credits to you because your need is greater for Audible than mine. So
I like having that backlog of Audible credits
no,
so I can buy what I want.
That's all in your hands.
Thank you.
Anyway, that was my my weekend at the conference, and there was a wonderful song that was sung at the end of it. So maybe for the end of this, I'll put a wee snippet of that on to sing us out at the end of this episode.
Sounds good.
Okay, enough for today.
I think so.
Yeah, it's already getting quite late.
Yes.
You need to get to bed.
I do need to get to bed. Okay. The alarm goes off early in the morning.
It does. All
right.
Thanks for joining us, folks.
Night, everybody.
Bye.
Give up hope. You're not alone.
Don't you give up.
Don't you give up.
Keep moving on.
Keep moving on.
You gotta put
One foot in front of the other and lead with